folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And for today's video I've come into these wild lands of Glen Clova, and as you can see, autumn is taking its toll here in this glen. The trees are starting to lose their leaves. There's hardly any leaves left on a lot of them, but some of them in the distance you can see the glen has taken on a new colour since the summer. And that's why I thought it's cool to come up on a wee adventure. Last weekend when I was out with like Highlander 87, it was such extreme weather with Storm Ashley that was striking the UK. We couldn't actually go on a proper adventure, so we ended up going to the coast. So today I thought, why not come to a secondary location this week? And here I am in Glen Clova, folks. It's cool often to come on a spontaneous adventure, and you never know where you're going to go when you leave the house, and you just end up in Scotland in the craziest of locations. And I'm way to head on further up Clova, and yeah, we'll see where we end up, folks. Let's get into the action. Check it out, folks, this is the only little road that leads up this glen, and I've come out the top of Glen Clova and I've made my way up into this wild landscape here, which is Glendall. And just check it out, look at these mountainous cliffs, and it's just crazy at both sides. I can see waterfalls coming off these mountains over here, leading all the way up into the wild lands of Glendall. And up here I can see some massive cliffs. The way the clouds is rolling over, it really helps you see how the stones are at the top of the hill. This is just insane scenes, folks, and I think there has been a lot of rains and storms up here, because I can see the wee roadside burning that's proper full. Wow, this is just incredible. It's amazing coming into these Scottish glens at different times of year. Everything just looks so different. From the summertime conditions when I was up here flying the drone around and stuff, compared to now, everything's orange and brown, and you can see the hilltop grass is going that yellow colour. And yeah, it just makes for a mad adventure. I was just thinking about heading down and having a walk about somewhere, eh? But it's super freezing cold. I should really get on the jacket for this adventure. Right, folks, we're going for a little adventure here up the hill, because near this tree or a wee bit further there's actually an incredible feat of nature itself, and there's a crazy massive balancing rock, and it looks like it's still in position. And it's a crazy thing, there's a rock which at one time must have tumbled down the hill, and it's been left just like literally balancing on the edge of another one, and you have to see it to believe it. So let's head on up this hill. It is super windy today, folks, so I've got the windsock on the camera. But yeah, what better place to explore than a landscape like this? You can see the hilltop clouds rolling over. And yeah, I've got the wellies on in case there's any ticks in this long grass as well. It's obviously the tail end of summer, we're in autumn, but you can often get ticks in landscapes like this. Wow, look how these boulders have at one time all rolled off and chipped off this cliff. And I'll have to keep an eye open for fresh boulders rolling down the hill as well. Landscapes like this change every year. That's how it's a miracle this massive boulder's still sitting here. It's the balancing rock. And yeah, wow, look at the size of some of these boulders. There is actually a secret cave and stuff over at that side as well. But on this video, folks, the balancing rock. Yes, look at this. The wee tree grows within the boulder field here on the hill. There's the wee Kia parked in there. And just look at the road. Everything looks miniature once you go up a hill. And this is proper steep. I'm gassed out after walking up this mad hill. And now I can see balancing rock up ahead. Look at these mossy boulders. It's got a certain character to it, and it's a mad light. At this time of year in Scotland it gets dark about 5:30, pretty much 5 o'clock it's getting dark, and now it's like 3:30. That's how it looks quite dull. Anyway, I can hardly speak. after walking up this hill. Look at this boulder up ahead, folks. I can hear a military fighter jet training in this area as well. You can hear the roar from the engine, maybe a Typhoon or an F-35B. Sounds more like a Typhoon. Check it out. I don't know if the size and the scale of this comes out on the camera. This rock is like the size of a house. I need to get up closer. We'll go around and have a look. The bottom rock is massive and it's balancing, but then for this one to be on top of it, when it rolled down, it must have just had enough momentum and just stopped. And it's super dangerous. This hill's just made up from like massive stones that's rolled in here. When they're tumbling, there would be massive like chunks tripping off them and flying all different directions. That's why I need to stay vigilant and safe. And I'm just trying to pick the best route, because obviously some of the rocks is slippy. Wow, this is so cool, folks. It's like the lands that are so wild and unexplored here. And this rock, that's why it's probably like undocumented. And I've not really heard anyone speak about it. It's kind of off the beaten path. And yeah, wow. Check it out, if you slip down one of those sides, even standing on some of these stones, it's super dangerous because the whole stone could actually tumble. And if one stone tumbled, it could cause all the stones to tumble, folks. Yeah, I love to see these little trees which have grown out of this mad rock falls. And here we are, look, balancing rock, folks. What an incredible place to visit. It's kind of, Glen Clova's down that way and Glendale's up this way. So it could even be called the Balancing Rock of Glendale. Exclusive here on the channel, folks. It's crazy being able to document this, like the size of the stone. This one's like the height of my head or higher, and then this one as well. It's crazy. And it looks like some of these other massive ones. It's just a crazy boulder field up here. And it's so lethal. Different times of year you get big chunks just falling off, depending on the conditions, if it's like frosty or wet. And yeah, look at the size of it from here. This is the other thing that makes it so crazy. Look how much of it's just like hanging over here. It's literally a feat of nature itself. Look at the size of this balancing stone, folks. Wow, when I remembered about it, I thought it's probably not even still here. But yeah, boom, we've managed to do it on today's adventure. And often just going on a spontaneous adventure into a land like that, that's when you see the most amazing thing. And I just keep looking up this way, because it's just pretty much a scary scene in a lot of ways as well. To document it, I'm literally standing on these boulders which could move at any time. Even this massive balancing rock here, it's only just touching like 1 little inch of that one there. And then it's sitting here. And then this stone could tumble it that way. This one could so easily go the opposite way. Wow, it's impressive. I forgot how actual cool and mega that the thing was. I'm so happy that I made this wee adventure up this hill. Wow, I need to try and jump up to this layer. Oh, I heard one of those stones moving when I stood on it. Yeah, this is cool. Look at the angle here of this. It's just like one take. I do apologise if the camera shot's wobbly and stuff. I'm just literally keeping it rolling at this time. Yeah, this is super cool. It's like a big triangle. How mad is it that that's landed there, balancing like that? I had also forgotten how much of it was sticking over, and like, I'm just blown away. Often you're like lost for words. The landscape here is so incredible and mega. And look at this, look at the shape of this cliff, the hill at the back. And then look at the shape of the stone here, folks. It's almost like a monument here to the mountain and the land. And wow, it's a natural monument created by a coincidence in nature, and the stone is the same shape as the mountain. I need to try and make my way down here. Yeah, that stone there is just moving. The one that I'm standing on right now, I hear it rumbling. Anyway folks, we'll keep it moving. Obviously you don't want to be in an environment like this when it gets dark, and if you stood on some of these stones, I don't want to cause like a landslide or tumbling down. Imagine that fell down and crushed the Kia. I would have to walk home miles. Wow, the scenes here. There's like big gaps through between the rocks. I'm not even sure what way to go. That's the rock there that I climbed on when I came into the site. Look at the size of it. It would be dangerous, I think, even to try and stand on it for a photograph. I was way to go this route, folks, and it's honestly like so slippy. I need to be super careful here. But that's what we're all about on this channel, folks. It's the adventure. I wouldn't advise anybody to come to these locations, these routes. We're experienced explorers on this channel, folks. Wow, every time I look around and look back at it, it just looks so massive sitting there. If it was a dry day, I would just jump down here and then across there and round to get a decent view of it, but because it's so slippy, I need to be extra careful with each footstep. Wow, this land is so extreme. And that's because of the weather often as well in these places. In the summer it's super warm, and then in the winter freezing cold. Strong winds and mad storms. And that stone sits there balancing against all that winds and things like that. Maybe one day there'll be a rumble and it'll land at the bottom of the hill. Here's a cool thing. I can hear water running. This is crazy because here there's no sign of a stream, and this is the thing on a Scottish hill. You could disappear down a hole 20 foot deep or more into water and you wouldn't get out. Because listen to this here. And that'll be flowing off up there. There's not even a waterfall or anything at the higher level. The water sometimes flows through the ground in these places, carving its way between the stones. And yeah, look at the stone from this angle. You can see how much it overlaps at this side. It's just hanging over so far, it just looks like it should tip. That's why it's such a miracle. It's balancing in so many different ways. It's not just simply a stone like all the rest here on the hill. It's magic. Anyway folks, I'll head a wee bit further down and I'll update the video. It would be crazy if you imagine when these stones here were tumbling down the hill, and imagine that massive one if you were just standing at this side and that just came and stopped in that position right in front of you. You would be thinking how lucky you must have been. The chance of that stone stopping like that is just amazing. But there's just so many stones in a landscape like this. Quite often you get the mountain climbers up there climbing up with the ropes, but it's such like a crumbly type of rock. I just would not fancy doing it myself. Like, you're putting so much trust into the ropes and stuff like that, into these rocks, and yeah, they're just big fragile chunks ready to come off. And I'm sure each time I come up this glen, these cliffs just look so much more savage. I'm just trying to pick the similar route to when I came up the hill, because it was quite easy going. And I love the character of the land when you get these little trees here and the way the moss grows under them. The moss is protected from the crazy weather, and that's why it grows like this. It's super damp conditions, and I'm sure the sheep love it as well in places like this. They get a bit of shelter. All these lands here are grazed by the sheep, and quite often you see flocks of sheep. I can see them way up there at the higher altitude here of these mountains, like, but I've just loved it today on this video, folks, documenting the balancing rock of Glendall and even the landscape of Glendall here as well. It's just special to see. It always blows me away. Look at the waterfall coming out of that top hill there, all the way down that side, and then there's another waterfall coming down this side, and it's just sheer cliffs and stuff. It even looks like there's some mad caves at the far side, but there's trees growing off those cliffs, full-size trees, and they just look like, honestly, little bushes. And that just shows the vastness of those hills. They're so much bigger often than what they look like. Once you go and try and walk up one of those hills or across one, you realise that you're just going miles. Anyway, folks, we'll keep this adventure moving. I'm going to go to another location on this video. So yeah, let's get into that. I'll update you. I'm going to make my way down this hill. The grass isn't too bad to walk on, but like, you can see how it's going yellow now. In the summertime, conditions are starting to die back. It's almost exploring season here on the channel, and that's what we love at this time of year. So check this out here, folks. We're now a wee bit further down the glen, and we're away to document the history of this ancient croft. And you can see there's an outline of walls here, maybe for livestock and their animals, but at this side you can see the remains of the old farm cottage and stuff. So I pulled the wee car in here and we're going to have a look around, see what remains of this history. And I've never ever documented this, like this side of the road here at this croft, so it's interesting to see what's here. Think what a long time ago these stones here were built into the land to make this wall, to make this dike. And even to this day it's probably still grazing lands used by the sheep. But this would have been part of the wee croft. Maybe the boy would sort out his animals before he went up onto this, before he let them loose out onto this hill. Wow, yeah, I was just having a look here, see what it is. It's just the gate. It's been the old gate into this compound, so you can see the old approach must have been for there. But I'm thinking surely the main road didn't come through this property originally. There's a little area here set up most likely from like a local gamekeeper or a farmer, but I'm not actually sure. There's a little circle of stones. I was thinking maybe the gamekeeper here had set up an area where he could lie and maybe shoot a deer or a fox or whatever he's trying to get that night. Yeah, look at this, folks. That could be what it is, because here's remains of that sort of stuff. But that's the countryside in Scotland. That's what it's all about. And up on the top of here, look at the cliffs sticking out of the clouds up there, and then this waterfall making its way down here, and the sheep are grazing those higher lands. Wow, what a scene of history here at this old croft. Imagine it back when it was originally put in. It was most likely, it would have been horses and stuff kicking about here, maybe a boy walking about with a wooden wheelbarrow or whatever, carrying out his day's tasks on the farm. Probably neighbouring crofts as well. They were all like a little community and stuff in these glens, because I have documented an old croft at the far side of the river there, so it's cool to see this one as well. It's more ancient, you could say it's more historical in certain ways, but obviously there's so much more of it gone. Sometimes some of the crofts in the Scottish glens around here were actually demolished in the Highland clearances, and then other ones, often the stone was taken away from some crofts to build like newer structures and settlements in the area, and some of the newer farms. So here we can see at the side of the farm, it's another one of these stone enclosures like we saw up there. And that's the thing with some of these farms, it was probably the first people to settle in these lands here, like that built these farms. So when they settled, they would have had to drain boglands and like clear probably a lot of bushes and trees and stuff like that that was growing, and some of these walled off areas may have been their only fields at that time. That would have been maybe where they had their wheat and stuff like that, with their animals grazing in certain other areas. And then look at this structure right here. It's almost like there's been a track here leading round and across that direction, and it has been a fair-sized farm settlement in its day. I'll just take a quick walk around. We'll go right around the perimeter of this and document the history, folks. Sometimes, even if I've been somewhere before, like years ago, you often miss details, and when you go back, it's crazy the things that you notice. And this has been so well constructed, originally with limestone mortar, which has now been washed out with the years and years of Scottish storms. Yeah, I wonder if this was maybe an original track coming along here and then down past the house, and then at a later time they've just brought the main road straight through, because it looks like there's been other buildings leading off there where the main road is now, and you can actually see remains of the front of the wall there. And yeah, it's crazy how at different times of year you can actually see different histories revealed. Just look at that. You think how long ago stuff like this was laid. And some of, like Glen Clova and Glen has got some ancient settlements, and you can still see the stone remains. Look at this one, it's fallen in obviously over hundreds and hundreds of years, but this has actually been quite a big structure here. But it almost looks like the back wall has always been carved. It's amazing to think of these houses maybe back at the time they would have like thatched roofs, other things like that, and then later on they would have stone slab roofs. But sometimes with the thatched roofs and stuff, you would never see any remains of that, because it's literally hundreds of years since these places were in their prime. And an interesting thing, I can see a massive ridge here built with stone, so I'm wondering if they were trying to direct maybe water or whatever away from the farm, or who even knows. That's the kind of questions of history we ask on these adventures, folks, and it's amazing how you can often uncover the history and see what they were doing once you have a proper explore. And I'm just looking to see how far this wall actually goes and for what reason it's here. Yeah, this is crazy, because this is like the last stone on the wall, and you can kind of see how it's the edge here of the settlement. I wonder if that's the farmer, the current farmer will be looking over and thinking like, who's this guy with a camera in the field here? Yeah, I'll head back around here now into the main little farm complex. I can hear birds of prey making their call, and also I can hear pheasants. Sometimes it's the maddest like animals and wildlife on these adventures, and I can hear the streams flowing off that hill ferocious. I can just hear it. Sounds like a crazy waterfall. Yeah, so look, we're now entering into this building, passing through the history. And sometimes on my adventures it's like travelling back in time when you imagine the people that may have been in a certain area like this. You imagine what they would have been wearing, maybe things they would be thinking about on their day-to-day life. And you wonder what sort of animals would be making their noise in the distance back at that time. Maybe wolves and things like walked around on this land at that time as well. Yeah, what a crazy little settlement. It looks like both these buildings here have been built at different times. And then this has obviously been other sheds or buildings. Could have even been another ancient little house. It was maybe pretty much like a little village, community, agriculture based. They would just have enough to survive for the year. Because I can see other stone walls leading around there and along. So I wonder if there's been a mad little grazing area here for their animals. And then the boglands, maybe the river's changed its course since that time as well. So look, we can see here, folks, evidence of where they've had the original house, and then this one's been built onto the side of it. Look at that, that must be stone with a high iron content right there. Just think how long ago each of these stones was put in with limestone mortar. Maybe this was the original family house, and then as they grew up they had to add on a bit. But the interesting thing, you can see the houses at this level or the building, and then look, they've had this other kind of bit here which would be their level foundation still visible, and there was probably a bit they could walk along at the front of the house. You can just imagine them sitting here in the evening on their chair looking around. the mountains and stuff probably wouldn't have looked so different back then, apart from what was growing on them. Yeah, it's just such an ancient time, folks. Hundreds of years potentially. These crofts were often here in like the 1200s all the way through 1400s. And yes, that's how long ago it was. That's why the walls look like this. It's honestly like visiting planet Earth after some mad apocalypse, or going in a time machine and travelling to the future. Just imagine a house looking like this because of that many years passing. Whoa, I'm total falling all over. I've got the wellies on once again for this portion of the adventure, and I'm just thinking I'll head up here because I think there's some other building remains at the far side. We're now passing through the second little field, and I can see the bit I came through is the original gate here into the field. What a mad adventure with that backdrop behind us. Such a special thing to see on this week's video, and I was lucky to get a chance to come out today and do a wee video as well. Considering the weather like last weekend, I was struggling to get out, and it was dangerous to go anywhere that there was like a lot of trees and stuff because the wind was so extreme. You end up getting a tree down on your head. So just imagine at the ancient time walking over from your field and coming this direction. You would come along as far as your neighbour's house, because I believe there's more remains here of more perimeter lines. And look, you can see it here. This is one of the remaining stones here, but it's been clear walls like other buildings. And that is interesting to see that as well. There's a proper stream leading down here, and I can hear it flowing ferociously, so we'll take a look at that as well on the way past here. Yeah, that's cool to see that big stone, and this has been a proper structure here. It's mad just to document things like this, often in between the abandoned like modern houses or crazy military locations and stuff. Like there's wee things like this from such an ancient time. And the reason it just looks like a mound, you have to imagine the stones fall down a little bit each year, sheep and cows grazing on them, eating the lush Scottish grass out here, and then one day it's off and just gone. See this, it could even be remains of what would have been like a lime kiln, but potentially it's just the natural landscape here. Some old farms had a lime kiln as well in the ground, or near the farm, but maybe this farm here is actually too ancient to even have that. I think the original track used to come in here and down, and then through the actual farm up in front of that farmhouse and along that way, from what I'm seeing. And then obviously in the modern world they would have just put the road the easiest route over the land. Check this out, I'm going to go through the burn in the wellies, folks. Real adventures on the channel once again. Oh, check it out, folks. Wonder if there's any gold underneath in that little stream there. I do have the windsock on the camera here, folks. I'm just sorting it out right now. Sometimes if I don't have that, the audio is almost like unlistenable. Yeah, look, here's the cool thing, folks. Look at this building here. This has been built to the same grand construction as that other house at the far side. And that's why I think there would have been an agricultural community here, probably with a few houses. Maybe that building we looked at here at the other side of the burn was literally the shed for this little croft house here. Often they would just have like one house and one little shed, and this one's actually built similar to the one at the other side, because it's got this secondary little house on the end, maybe for the horse or maybe for their cart. A prized possession back in the day, like a modern person would have a garage with their car in it at their house. Back in the day the horse was in there like getting cared for too. And look at the interesting bit of the land here behind this cottage. Look, you can see how it's still dug out, where at one time the foundation was levelled here before they built it. This is the edge of the area that they had levelled the foundation, and they've probably had a wee track just going down the back of the cottage, probably diverting the water away around and back into the burn. And it's ancient architecture, folks, hundreds of years old, using products and stones and things that they could find in the local area. And literally, see right here on the main road at the summit of this little hill, there's a whole flock of sheep right here, folks. Check out this here, folks. Look at the character of these trees. And that waterfall there comes miles off the hill. That person in the car's just managed to make their way through the flock of sheep. I think some of them ran back up into the field here. This looks like a chestnut tree here. Each tree obviously changes colour at a different time, and each tree is a different colour, and that's what makes autumn such a cool time for an adventure like we've had today. Check out the old stone lintels over that waterway. Probably the old bridge was put in at the first road that was put in at the same time as the first road here. So that was super cool to document that history hidden in a landscape like this. And like I say, I've never looked at this side of the road before and documented that little wall line, and I was curious just to see if there was anything else up there. And then all these other buildings at this side. At one time a little croft or a little settlement. People often ask what is a croft in the comments, and it's basically just an old farm, an individual, maybe family or whatever, which would have a few animals or enough to get by, and the lands often used to just be dotted with crofts all over. Most folk were crofters at the ancient time of Scotland, trading their animals or whatever else they had made. And that is interesting. That's why we see so many crofts from different time periods, and each croft had like a little cottage and a house. Sometimes they were miles apart, and other times you would get a few crofts close by. And yeah, it's just interesting to see it. There must have been wee communities back at that time. Not only did they live near each other, they probably traded with each other quite often. And it's just interesting to think about it. The history back then, maybe so much more forests on these hills as well. Anyway folks, I'm back to my car, so I'm going to end this crazy video here. Today we've basically had a wee adventure in Glen Clova. We've seen some wild landscapes with that balancing rock and that rocky cliffside, and then to see this ancient history hidden here, it's just a cool wee ending. To imagine the folk that at one time probably built that and lived there for years happily, and then one day it just fell silent. Nothing but the sound of the wind from the glen there blowing by. Anyway folks, I'm ending it here, so we'll see you soon with the next one.